Stay Sane with Jane, the show that helps you and your business to thrive, not just survive. Tune in each week as Jane connects with guests in the wellness, business and publishing worlds, bringing you the most up-to-date training, techniques, healing and guidance for growth, mindset and motivation. Each session includes a magical guided meditation led by Jane or one of her special guests. Here's your host, Jane Scanlan. Hello and welcome to episode 15, I think, of Stay Sane with Jane. And today we're going to be talking to Claire Standen. So Claire is deeply passionate and enthusiastic coach, devoted to helping women step into their most powerful and authentic selves. A sea swimmer like myself, wild woman and single mum of two, she has spent the last 5 years discovering what life looks like when you become unapologetically yourself. And spoiler alert, it is phenomenal. Welcome, Claire.
Hi.
So, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, about the sea swimmer, about the mum?
Okay, yes. So yeah, I recently, well, actually 2 years ago now, moved to live literally right beside the sea, in a town in Scotland called Montrose, and I've kind of discovered like a whole new level of life here. So just like the community that I've been looking for a long time, and access to the sea within like 10 minutes from my door. And it feels a little bit like the payoff for all the kind of inner work I've been doing for the last 5 years is that I actually have this life that just totally reflects what I love, which is connection, deeply valuing connection. And as a single mum, having felt quite disconnected in parts of my life from support, from friendship that kind of drifted away when I became a single mom, and also going on this kind of entrepreneurial journey, which not everybody can relate to, I think, as well. So I really am deeply creative. I've always said if I sat long enough in front of a doctor, I'm sure that they would diagnosed me with ADHD, but I've really found so many different ways to work with that creativity and that tendency towards scattiness to just do all sorts of projects in my life, do all of the things that I love, not run out of energy, and it's hard to separate myself from everything that I've done in business, because I feel pretty passionately that if I'm getting it right, the two things are hard to separate. It's like I would not have the enthusiasm that I have for the work that I do if it didn't feel like a part of me.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So I resonate with so much of this. I too moved to the seaside. I wasn't born in Bournemouth. I'm a South London girl.
Mm-hmm.
And just, being by the sea and having a whole different community and culture down here. It's really, I don't know, opened me up and kind of embedded me into the coastline. I don't know, do you feel the same?
Yes, I really do. There's something about, I think the last time that I met such a diverse group of people that come together with a common kind of interest was at university. So that's like, 20 years ago. And now I know all sorts of people and we love each other, and all that we really have in common is that we like to go and get in the North Sea, It's a bit mad, really.
Yeah, and I'm completely opposite end of the country. So for us, our sea is probably quite a bit warmer than yours. I don't know. What's the temperature like up in Scotland at the moment for the sea?
I want to say it's not quite reached its coldest. It's maybe 8 or 9 degrees.
Oh, okay. We're
What are
the
you?
same. I'm shocked.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
thought it was going to be a lot colder up in Scotland. But yeah, we're about the same, dipping to probably 6 in this month, February.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah.
it's such a great community. And it's
Oh,
interesting you said about the different walks of life people, because I created this mindful meander, like a group that walk, talk, dip, and drink coffee or hot chocolate, whatever, afterwards, and connect. And we've got people from normally 30s to up to 80s sometimes, totally different walks of life, and different backgrounds, but we all really just connect and, like you say, love each other and have a really nice time together.
love it.
So tell me a little bit about your business, what you do now, and how you got started.
Right. So I am, it's hard to define, but I call myself a coach most times. I talk about what I do. I could also probably call myself a therapist, because a lot of the work that I do involves helping people get over the trauma that they've experienced. I have had many careers in my lifetime, starting with I was a forester for a number of years.
I like that.
Which,
Tell us a little bit about that.
so I did an ecology with forestry degree at Edinburgh University. Moved to Scotland for that, and have never moved away from Scotland. And I did that for a number of years. And then what happened is that my dad got incredibly ill. So he had his first stroke. And I'm somebody who, as I look back, has moved, has made big changes in response to big trauma.
Yes.
So my dad had a stroke, and there was just this knowing in me that if I continued in the government job that I was in with forestry, which was working in the kind of government forest service,
Yeah.
that I probably could go the same way as my dad, work myself into the ground, never give myself a rest. And I kind of made the decision that that was not going to be my path. And so I decided to do something that I was passionate about, which was train as a veterinary nurse. I absolutely love dogs.
Yeah.
And I threw myself into that. I retrained as a veterinary nurse in 2010, and decided to really give that my all. And then I did that for 8 years until I had my kids, and I was married by then. And when I became a single mum, it became very clear very quickly that a low-paid work, low-paid job was never gonna let me bust free of the kind of poverty cycle. No matter, even if I looked at some of the kind of better jobs available, or better paid jobs available to veterinary nurses, there wasn't much that was really aspirational.
Yes.
And also
I've
some,
got to say, there's definitely a trap, when you become a single mum, because you want to spend lots of time with your children, and often if you have a full-time job or a part-time job, pretty much all of your money goes on to childcare.
yeah.
See, I'm a single mum too, and I have been from the start. So it's always been just my money, just my time, just my decisions. And when you're in that situation, like, you have no spare money. It's yeah. And I remember working as it was a good job, deputy manager in the London ambulance service. It was well paid, but I had no money. The childcare fees and costs took everything.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you do this? So you had the same sort of realization, this
Yeah.
is just not going to work for
No,
me.
no.
And then what did you do going forwards?
Well, I started getting what looked from the outside a little crazy. So there are some things I did that I still haven't like told my family that I did. Like I bought a a sort of personal development aspirational course, and when it translated from dollars to pounds, I realized that I'd spent more than my monthly wage on this course.
Oh, yes.
And I still remember that gut wrench feeling that I'd done something really stupid and really bad and really wrong. Do you know, it was just that lack of trust in myself that I had in the early days, even though I was really starting to do something that these days I really value, which is following my intuition, you know?
Yes.
And so I bought a course like that. I went to a hypnotherapist, really billed himself as, but what he ended up doing with me was more like neurolinguistic programming kind of coaching.
Yeah.
And I had those three, like it was literally 3 sessions with him. And at the end of it, I just felt like a completely different person. I felt like all of the options had opened up to me and what my life might look like. And once I'd sort of started making some moves, making some changes, not huge ones, but, you know, really like what had fundamentally changed was inside of me. And I thought, it felt a bit like magic, to be honest. And so I went back to the guy that had helped me and I said, I don't know what you did, but I'm a bit blown away by it. I can't really think of anything I'd like to do more in the world than help people in the way that you helped me.
Yeah.
And so can you recommend any courses that I could do? Anyone that's teaching this stuff? Where do I go to learn it? You know, what do I need to do? And he said, well, hold your horses, because I'm actually about to teach a series of courses on it. So if you want, you could be on those. And I was like, well, that's absolutely perfect, you know?
Yes.
So those courses were NLP, neuro-linguistic programming courses, basically. Yeah. And a bit of hypnotherapy as well. And I did every course that he offered across a couple of years. And doing all of that sort of inner work, as it turned out to be, just fired me up even more. You know, I was like, right, this is it. This is what I want to be doing. You know, I want to do this with people for the rest of my life and get better and better at it so that I help more and more people more and more profoundly across time. And I've been doing that ever since, with a few big leaps. So there was a point at which I had to recognize that spending all of my time earning very little money at work, and, you know, if the kids got ill, I would have to take a day off.
Nightmare, isn't it?
And I'd have to go in on my Saturday. I wasn't getting really any free time, you know, to do anything. And I thought, I'm going to have to take a real leap of faith here, where even though I don't have any clients in the books, because I don't have time to get any clients on the books, you know, I'm going to have to just trust myself and take a leap and say, right, that's it. I'm going self-employed. I'm doing this no matter what it takes. And I did that at the end of 2018. I was very lucky to get a self-employed contract. I think they're pretty much unheard of, working for a charity doing what I do, but with, you know, with regular paid work, basically.
Amazing.
And I did that until the pandemic changed the dynamics a bit. And I decided to really go, you know, actually self-employed and start getting my own clients for myself and stuff. So yeah, that's been my my journey. It started, I'm not sure if I said this at the beginning, it started because I decided to separate from my husband, and I basically realized that I didn't have any emotional regulation tools or coping strategies, and that I was going to need them for everything that I wanted to achieve. So, yeah.
And I think it's so important when we're bringing up children as well to know these coping strategies and to be able to then teach them as well, so they have more emotional integrity and structure and are just able to deal with life a little bit better than perhaps we were growing up.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I realized, is that without knowing it, up until about, well, probably up until the age of 30, I was actually a really anxious person. You know, I had a lot of subtle fears operating under the surface that really drove my behavior. And it had to be kind of subconscious work that got done there to unravel that stuff. Because I didn't really want to be scared all the time. I didn't want to live in fear. You know, I didn't want to have essentially like fear of poverty control me forevermore, you know, and it really was, it was that story was playing out in my life. So
it's a very interesting kind of subject. And when all the people that I've interviewed to this day, well, so far actually they're all female, and we've all had several careers, and then we've landed in this space by doing self-development work and having therapy for ourselves. And then thought, wow, this is absolutely amazing. I need to train in this. So it's amazing that how many females are out there that have lived so many different lives within this one life, and are kind of choosing their perhaps end career, the longest career they have, by giving back to the community, raising vibrations, and generally helping people to let go of the fears, phobias, the subconscious programming, and start living the life of their dreams. So it is really that ripple effect going out, and I can see kind of the structure just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's way more people now doing self-development work and taking therapies than there were 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm really celebrating it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So if we were to work together, what would that look like? What is a kind of client's journey for you right now?
So I always have this awareness that when people look in from the outside at my journey over the last 5 years, for a lot of people, it can look quite scary. You know, there's a lot of change. And so I'm going to start the client journey with me way before somebody even reaches out to me, because I put a lot out there on the internet. I'm radically honest, very vulnerable, and have been for a number of years now. And what I aim to achieve with that is like normalizing the human experience. You know, I really want to be speaking to those voices inside of people that are telling them that they're broken or wrong, you know, or that something is fundamentally different about them than other people, and you know, the stories that they have about what's possible for them in their life. And so I've always shared stuff that I want to speak to that journey before people even contact me. And even if I'm not the person that they ever go to in the end, I'm very happy to have been part of their journey in that way. Now, if somebody comes and drops into my inbox and says, do you know what, Claire, I would actually really like to do some of this work that you've been talking about, I invite them to either a 3-month, a 6-month, or a 12-month coaching journey with me. Most people initially start with like 3 months, you know.
Yeah.
And usually it's because, especially because a lot of the stuff that I put out there is about divorce and separation. Often it's because the situation that they have with an ex-partner is basically making them ill and stressed and tired, you know.
Yeah.
And so what we work together on in that context, and some of my clients are also not divorced or separated, you know, they just recognize that there's some mental freedom that they could be accessing that they are currently not accessing. And so I bring a variety of tools and modalities that I've learned across the years, which could be hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming processes, trauma recovery skills. And I will invite them to any and all of those processes that will be the difference that make the difference right now. And essentially what I'm looking to help this person create is more mental freedom in themselves, is freedom from fear, you know, and stress and overwhelm. And when I say in my bio that I'm like really enthusiastic, I think that one of the things that I bring for clients is this genuine knowing deep inside of me that we will always be bigger than any problem that they have and can bring to the sessions. And so knowing that deep down that like there is a solution, you know, and that we're going to find it together, is I kind of think of it as like a force of nature, you know, we kind of blast right through it. And so I've had a lot of feedback that the way that I work isn't as heavy as people as expected, you know.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, given how vulnerable I've been online. I think sometimes people can assume it's going to be like difficult or gritty, but that, you know, we can always choose to bring humor and lightness into any moment, and so I tend to bring that into our work, at the same time as acknowledging and honoring how, you know, profound these things are for people that have lived in them across the years or that have happened to them across the years. So yeah, working towards freedom and actually enjoying their life, you know, thriving in it and having a life that reflects who and what they are as a person.
Yeah, it's so important, and it's such a joy to take clients on that journey. And I often, you know, with my clients, stay kind of connected on social media. Some of them become my friends. You know, we are in the same sort of circles. And it's so magical to see them taking different life choices and different steps that they would have before doing therapy, coaching, mentoring with you. It's such a magical process. Have you got any, before we move on, actually, have you got any kind of success stories? Like a lady popped into my head just then, and it was just a magical journey of somebody who came to me with deep trauma, and abuse in her background, and she was young, she was still a teenager, and we worked through using EFT and some other processes, access bars, which is access to consciousness, and energy work. And then one of the most magical things that I taught her was the Ho'oponopono prayer.
Love it. Yeah, and also can't say it too well.
Yeah, I can't say it. And I taught her that prayer at the end. I didn't know it was going to be the end of us working together, but that was the bit of magic that absolutely transformed her life. I told her about the story behind it. It's a Hawaiian prayer there for those of you listening who haven't heard of it. It's a Hawaiian prayer, and it's basically translated, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry. And you repeat those sentences in different orders. And the story behind it is a mental health doctor. He was a doctor, wasn't he? Yeah, years ago in Hawaii. They were having a lot of problems with the mental health psych wards and things like that, and they were becoming too full, and nobody wanted to work in this particular one because it was also a prison. And this guy came in, and he came from a background of healers and kind of, I suppose, shamans. And he started praying over every single inmate there. And he finished his work when there was basically nobody left in that psych ward. So I explained this, I told the story, I passed over the prayer, and I said, write the prayer in different orders and stick it on all the various doors, or anywhere, a wall in your flat, and every time you go past it, say it. And that was it. She got off of her meds. She was never sectioned again. She moved house. She is having a lovely life with her kids, her new partner. And it just absolutely transformed her life. And it's just amazing how you can pass on like a little bit of what is it? It's a new skill, basically. You're passing on knowledge that can then have the ripple effect into other people's lives, whether it's the Ho'oponopono prayer or EFT or CBT or whatever. It's just freaking love it.
Me too. So one of the things that blew me away when I was working in lockdown, I got a lot of people through the charity that I was working through who had basically reached absolute breaking point. These were people who would never have sought help were it not for this huge global, crisis that had really just pushed them absolutely to the edge. And one of them, whether it was because he didn't have the technology, I'm not sure, but we ended up just working on the phone together. Now, up to that point, I'd mostly worked face to face with people, and the pandemic had meant that was a crossover to like video, So I was kind of learning that skill set, more of how to effectively elicit change over video calls.
Yes.
And then dropped into my lap this phone call with a guy, who'd had huge amounts of trauma happen during his military career. And I just had this phone call to have with him. Now, as I remember now, back to that phone call, what it feels like to me is that like the whole of the rest of the world stopped.
Wow.
Actually, I could get quite emotional about it. He had my full attention. And intention, I suppose, is probably one of the things, with this work, is like we're incredibly passionate about helping the people who sit in front of us and ask for our help. And we spoke on the phone for, I think, 90 minutes or 2 hours that day. And I did some stuff. I didn't know if it would work over the phone, but I led him through some processes, mostly NLP. It was hypnotherapeutic to all intents and purposes.
Yes.
What I was guiding him through. And I don't necessarily separate those two things, NLP and hypnosis, in my mind. But and he cried and he released and he, came to new understandings about what had happened and why in his life and himself as a person. And on the next call that we had, he was, he basically couldn't string a sentence. He was just like, I don't know what you did. And he was just full of gratitude for this opportunity to get rid of something that had been giving him horrific nightmares ever since it happened, and that he was free of after that, you know.
Yeah.
And just, I think that's one of the most. And there's another tiny little one, which is where I did some integrative eye movement therapy with a veteran, and he had a story about himself which was not entirely positive, like a statement about self, you know. And I did this little process, and at the end of it, he laughed and I laughed, and he said, I said, how do you feel about that now? And he said, what was it I said about myself? And I was like, well, if you can't remember, I'm certainly not bringing it back into the room, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, if you're free of it, you're free of it, you know. Let's not go back there. So that kind of thing.
It's just magical, isn't it?
It's magical. I don't know why I would do anything other than this for the rest of my life. I love it.
Ditto. I hope more charities and the National Health Service bring in holistic therapies and mindset work and coaching. It is so powerful.
It's life-changing.
It's absolutely life-changing. And I know things did used to be available on the NHS, and then there was a bit of a witch hunt, God knows. I think it was about 2011. That's when I qualified as a homeopath. And back then, all of the homeopathic hospitals around the UK were getting closed down. I think there's only one left, which is in central London. So, yeah, I just hope that as we're spreading this like wildfire, that charities and organisations like the NHS bring these back, because it helps free people. They're not dependent on other things.
Really, anything outside of themselves. That's what I.
Yes. Yeah, and it just frees them, and then has that ripple effect. People in their lives are then free from that massive burden of living with somebody with trauma or mental health problems or all of that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
fantastic.
My dog's licking her paw, and I'm hoping people won't be able to hear that on the audio.
I've got a dog and 6 puppies here and a cat trying to get in the window. So I'm just like, please be quiet for the radio.
Overwhelm.
So have you got any advice or top tips for the audience, things that they can implement for free today, things that are just easy?
Okay, so one of my basic principles here is that, like, everything really that I have to offer is really easy. You know, implementing it is not always simple.
Yeah, do you know what I was just about to say? These are really easy things to do, but implementing them and consistency is the hard part.
It's the hard part. And actually, you know what, one of the things that I've moved towards recently is recognizing that as a probably ADHD and definitely perimenopausal woman, I am not consistent at all, ever, you know, but I
bet you are. I've just reframed what consistency means to me.
Oh, do it, yeah.
So consistency for me is not every single day.
No.
Because that's not going to happen in my life, because I'm probably the same. So consistency for me is like 7 out of 10. That's the rule I live by, and that's what I teach. Like, anybody that kind of comes into my circle, 7 out of 10 is good enough. You know, if you meditate, I don't know, 4 times a week, 3 times a week, that's 7 out of 10. Brilliant. Keep going. Like, perfection and 10 out of 10 is not reality.
No.
And that's when we can just beat ourselves up about not being good enough, not being enough, basically. So I just reframed what consistency means, and that is 7 out of 10.
Yeah. And let it be cyclical. So here are some things. Let let your life, let yourself be cyclical as you are nature. You know, we let nature be cyclical because we can't fight that. You know, it will happen anyway. And yet we fight the cyclical nature of ourselves all the time. And so, you know, when I sort of think about calling myself a sea swimmer, and there are people who get in the sea every morning at 7 a.m. You know, they don't have 2 children to get to school. They don't have, you know, and I could, you know, there's a sort of toxic thing in the personal development around like excuses and like not giving yourself excuses. And I think, you know what, some things are just circumstances of life, right?
Yes.
So I think that at the same time as understanding that there might be circumstantial things in your life that stop you from doing things a certain way, don't let it stop you from doing it your way. You know, so if I don't get in the sea for 3 weeks, I'm still a sea swimmer, and the next chance I get, I'll get in the sea, you know. But if I've got the kids for 2 weeks of the holidays and they don't want to go, you know, or they're not interested in watching me go and dip myself in the sea, I don't do it. So and one of the things that I see a lot as a gap in, for example, spiritual circles, you know, is that we are humans with thought processes. And I think that as much as you might do spiritual work, you know, or energetic work, in any given moment, thoughts are going to be presenting themselves to you as a human. And the process of being able to relate to our thoughts differently is one of the most life-changing. That's what I lean into in my work quite hard, in myself and with my clients. And so to understand you're not your thoughts, you know, to understand that your emotions are actually a combination of body sensations, which may be influenced by traumatic past events, plus the meaning that you make in this moment of all of that, is genuinely paradigm shifting and life changing. And there are billions of free resources out there. And so my piece of advice would be to follow your intuition in terms of finding something that's helpful to you, deep dive into it, learn about it, implement it in your life. Don't let this very natural, especially in Britain, process of cynicism get in the way. You know, see what experiences you can have with some idea that seems freeing, and then and implement it and see what happens. You know, get curious about life and yourself would be my main thing.
Love it. Thank you, Claire. And do you have an offer for our audience today?
I do. So I believe deeply in the power of connection and community. And so to that end, I provide monthly free women's circles, which you can find me talking about if you find me on social media channels, or if you join my Facebook group, which is called Grounded Feminine. There's an invitation every month to those circles. And when we sit in circle there, I'm really just holding space for women to practice being more fully themselves. And so my offer, whether they do it within that context or elsewhere, is being more fully yourself unapologetically and finding a space to do that, which I provide.
Fantastic. And is this in person or online or both?
So I do in-person women's circles in Montrose, where I live, every month as well. But this is, you know, for people listening who might be other places than anybody. I've had people tune in from lots of other countries actually at this point, which is really exciting. So basically anybody anywhere online who wants to join me is very welcome.
Okay, and we're going to have details below. And if they're listening live on Mintwave Radio, how are they going to find that info? How are they going to be able to connect with you to jump on one of these women's circles?
Okay, so my Facebook group is called Grounded Feminine, and it has a little stars either end of the title, so they can look up Grounded Feminine. And I've also linked to that from my website, which is www.clairestanden, CLAIRESTANDEN.com.
Fantastic. It has been an absolute pleasure to connect with you, hear all about your business and the way you have transformed your own life, and then having that ripple effect to transform so many other lives within the vicinity of both in person and online. It's been an absolute pleasure, Claire. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for speaking to me.
And you can connect with Claire on Facebook or through her website. Just Google Claire Standen. And also, what's the Facebook group again?
Grounded Feminine.
Grounded Feminine. Thank you so much. We're going to say goodbye to you, and we are shifting over to the meditation sessions. We're going to be taking you through this week's meditation session, which is my little word, my coined phrase for a combination of mindfulness and meditation. So please get comfy. Today, as we've been talking a lot about NLP, hypnosis, the emotional freedom technique on the Stay Sane with Jane radio show, we're going to be doing a meditation to help boost your brainwaves. So please only do this meditation session if you are able to fully relax, close your eyes safely, and just take a few moments with me. If you're driving a car or operating heavy machinery, perhaps just pop this on pause and just come back to it when you are in a place that you can truly relax. So to begin this meditation, please bring kind awareness to what boosting your brainwaves means to you. How do your belly, chest, and head feel when you reflect on this topic? And what emotions do you associate with these visceral feelings? Are there any positive or negative stories running in the background regarding this topic? And just remember that many other people around the world feel exactly the same as you. Bring awareness to how you can apply increased mindfulness to this area in your day-to-day life. So, let's begin. Boosting your brainwaves. In this exercise, I'll share the effectiveness of mindfulness on two of our brainwave frequencies. So stimulating a relaxing, calming, and even creative state of mind, reducing the likelihood for headaches or migraines to strengthen anytime soon. Recent scientific studies behind mindfulness tells us amazing things about the brain. Numerous studies have demonstrated that mindfulness meditation changes areas of the brain that are associated with memory, compassion, anxiety, stress, and fear. Using neuroimagery on the brain, recent research shows that mindfulness stimulates the part of the brain responsible for reducing stress neurotransmitters. And when you meditate, you're generating higher alpha and theta brainwave signals, which helps stimulate the prefrontal cortex in the brain, which improves your mood, decreases pain, incites relaxation, and boosts the immune system. There's also an added plus that the alpha and theta waves are both associated with high levels of creativity, intuition, and insight. These side effects are a lot better than the side effects of opiates, right? So simply close your eyes. Even when you're awake and not meditating, your brain slows down to the alpha cycle. Alpha brainwaves are associated with being in a relaxed and non-aroused state. This is why closing your eyes throughout the day instantly helps you feel more relaxed, because it slows down your brainwaves. Theta waves are associated with deeper levels of meditation. They can also produce feelings of relaxation, which are more intense than those experienced in alpha. So let's see if we can stimulate your alpha and theta brainwaves by doing a guided meditation. Close your eyes, feeling super relaxed and at ease. Focus on your breath. And feel that slowing down of the brain, of the heart, of the whole self. Feeling waves of relaxation flow through the body and the mind. Remembering that when we meditate and practice mindfulness, we are generating higher alpha and theta brainwave signals. They help stimulate the prefrontal cortex in the brain, which improves mood, decreases pain, incites relaxation, and boosts the immune system. By simply closing your eyes and breathing, your brain slows down to be in a relaxed, non-aroused state of mind. This is a technique that you can use throughout your day. Logically knowing the science behind just taking a moment to close your eyes and breathe. Knowing that this is more powerful than opiates. This is boosting your brain waves, increasing your alpha and theta brain waves, and helping your brain to slow down and relax. I invite you to take a deep breath and tense the whole body as you hold that breath in, and then release and relax. Take a nice deep breath and hold and tense the whole body and release and relax. As you come back into the room, into the space, the physical space where you're at, allow yourself to look around mindfully, picking out different colours that are around you, different textures. Maybe physically holding yourself and giving yourself a hug. And knowing that you have this tool in your back pocket to tune into every and any moment you so wish to. My name is Jane Scanlan. Thank you so much for joining us for the Meditation sessions. You can also tune in to Stay Sane with Jane on Mintwave Radio every Wednesday at 11 a.m. UK time. Stay Sane with Jane, the show that helps you and your business to thrive, not just survive. Tune in each week as Jane connects with guests in the wellness, business and publishing worlds, bringing you the most up-to-date training, techniques, healing and guidance for growth, mindset and motivation. Each session includes a magical guided meditation led by Jane or one of her special guests. Here's your host, Jane.